forbid amendments. You know, I forced this debate. Nobody wanted to have this debate. They want a rubber stamp, they want no debates, and they want to send your kids to war with no debate. Today they...
Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Liberty Report. Co-host today, Daniel McAdams. Daniel, good to see you.
Good morning, Dr. Paul.
Well, good. We saw that little clip from somebody I know pretty well, a member of our family, and in the Senate, but talking about serious things. Just what's going on here? Why is he interested in Montenegro?
Yeah, it was last night was the debate to vote to close the debate on Montenegro, essentially approving Montenegro's accession into NATO. It was a treaty issue, and Senator Paul was one of two, Mike Lee being the other, who voted against this. But if you remember, a few days ago, Senator Paul got into a bit of trouble with John McCain because he was saying, what are we getting into with this, bringing Montenegro into NATO? They don't provide anything for U.S. security. They don't do anything to help us. It's only a burden for American taxpayers and possibly even soldiers.
Yeah, and if you listen to his entire statement, it's a pretty good statement. You know, it's so bold, it's so radical. He's asking, can't we have a debate? Please, let us have a debate. And all I'm asking is, you follow the Constitution if you're going to make a commitment that you don't send our kids off to war. And I think he made the point very strong. But, you know, it's a shame where the support isn't. And just think of, you know, how he was treated about, you know, his current foreign policy. I mean, McCain literally called it, you know, he's working for Putin, a treason. So there you go down and give a statement like that, and you get 97 senators voting against it. They just don't care. And it is rather disgusting, and yet it sails through. But I might ask the question. The question I'd like to know is, where's our president? Why couldn't the president stand up for this? He did in the campaign. I mean, he took a position, one that we liked, you know, rein in NATO. But this has to do with the expansion of NATO to Montenegro, allow them to come in. They don't even have 1 million people in the whole country. It's like 750,000 people, yet they will have the same protection of any other country that belongs to NATO. Oh, it's collective. If we get into trouble, if the Canadians invade us, they'll all come to our rescue. Or if the Mexican invasion comes, they'll come, which is all a farce. It's just part of our empire, and nobody's there. Where are the people in the Tea Party movement? Where are the people who want to change? They're not there. And the House won't vote on this. This is considered, you know, an amendment to a treaty. But the House is involved. They should be yelling and screaming too, because they're going to roll over and do all the payments. Oh, well, expansion, and, you know, that's a spot in the world that is not completely calm, you know, and you actually worked in an area not too far from there. So it is potentially very, very dangerous, and it's a commitment. And I've always argued against these treaties, you know, whether it's the treaty to defend Taiwan or the Middle East countries or NATO. They're committing another generation, because they were made these commitments way back. But it is assumed, how many people in this country or in Congress would think that if they start getting into real trouble between Taiwan and China, you know, oh yeah, we'd have to do it. It'd be automatic. Oh no, we don't have to have a debate. No debate on this. This isn't war. You know, this is our business, and we're the policemen. That's the part that is bad. But it's also, when they get overly bold, I think there's the risk of getting overly involved, just as the Soviets did, and it will eventually lead to a downfall of the system. And we're getting precariously close. Pretty soon they're going to be talking about the budget, and where are they going to get the money? And it's not going to come out of the militarism. You know, it's going to come out of education or child health care or something, in the pretense that they're going to, you know, save some money.
Well, you're absolutely right. You know, that Montenegro's accession to NATO has nothing to do with American security. Their entire army is made up of about 2,000 soldiers, so it's not a major force. What it is about is continuing to expand the NATO's military involvement circling Russia. Now, Montenegro was not right next to Russia. However, Montenegro was sort of a gateway country. They want to keep the momentum of NATO expansion going because after Montenegro, people like McCain want Georgia in NATO, and then they want maybe Azerbaijan in NATO, and then the ultimate prize is Ukraine in NATO. So this is one step and part of the process, less about Montenegro and more about continuing the encirclement of Russia.
You know, the real issue here is something that has been settled, unfortunately, and only a few will bring it up, and that has to do with war powers, you know, who declares war. And now it's UN, it's NATO, or the president. He just moves troops around, you know, and move them in. And it's always, well, you know, in 2001, they got the authority to do this, which is a bunch of hooey too. I mean, there's no authority on the books to go anyplace, anytime. So it is the rejection of law, the Constitution first, and even laws on the books, you know, that they just go. But it's also symbolic of an empire. And if you start to reveal how bad things are, then all of a sudden you're un-American. You get accused of wanting to identify with the enemy, and that's where we are here. And I am so glad that Rand did this, but it's so sad that it's such a lonely fight, you know. But I believe, though, there's a lot of people that'll be very sympathetic with these viewpoints. I don't think this statement by Rand right now is going to hurt him. And if he were to run again or win his next election in Kentucky or anybody, this isn't going to hurt them. People want to hear this. But if they never hear it, they don't know how to respond. It's just kept quiet. And that was his whole point. His whole point wasn't the issue. The issue's been out there. The whole point is they don't even want to hear about it, or they don't want to debate on it, because he had to object, you know, to force them to the floor. And then he gets a total of a few minutes to go down there and represent his position. And they go on and they have the vote. And it's all over.
Yeah, and the whole thing really is about this hysteria that's captured Washington about Russia. You know, and even to mention it, you know, we're probably being accused as we speak of, you know, being in the pay of Daddy Putin, you know, but just this whole obsession with that's out of the blue that Russia is somehow, we've got to encircle them, we've got to put our troops on their border because they're coming to get us. And
and I want to read a little quote from somebody that used to be in government. He used to be president. Oh, no, he used to be vice president. Mm-hmm. But by a guy by the name of Dick Cheney. Oh. And he is on the side, I think he's a neocon party member. I don't think he was ever a member of the Republican Party. I mean, neocons have their own agenda. Right now, the neocons are Democrats. And I saw someplace where it looks like Cheney is part of the Democratic Party now on foreign policy. Yeah. And they're philosophic. They're philosophic, and they believe it. But I want to read just a real short sentence of Cheney. I think he was giving a speech in India, and unofficial, of course, because he's not in office for anything right now. And this is in quotes. "There was a very serious effort made by Mr. Putin and his government, his organization, to interfere in major ways with our basic fundamental democratic process." And he suggested that anybody like that, and he was pointing to Russia, anybody like that interferes with our election, this should be considered an act of war. Mm. So Congress doesn't declare war. A guy like Cheney wants to declare war. Constantly. So this is pretty bad, especially the irony of it all. Just think of what if every government that ever interfered, or what if every time we interfered? I mean, he was using Ukraine as Russian aggression. But they don't want you to hear about, who were the aggressor, who interfered in the election, who interfered with the current political system in Ukraine. It started with the United States, with NATO and European allies. And so therefore, does that mean that if he's consistent, people listen to him? Wow, we better be careful. We're interfering all the time. What would happen to the CIA if they get caught interfering in elections? But I imagine I don't think it would be overstated that we could have easily interfered in 50 elections in the last several decades.
Actually, 81, I think, is the number that people have come up with.
I'm too generous.
But, this is, it was John McCain who was up there in Ukraine while the people were in the streets trying to overthrow the government. He went up on stage and encouraged the people to overthrow the government. This is on video. This is not some kind of conspiracy theory. So the U.S. was actively involved in meddling with the elections, post-election, of course, but meddling with overthrowing an elected government. So Cheney, I guess it's okay when we do it.
I want you to comment on something here, because Cheney also said, this has been in the news before, the U.S. intelligence agency, they also believe with a high level of confidence that Putin became personally involved. Well, if he's personally involved, I mean, we never proved that Obama was personally involved. Personally responsible, but not personally involved to do all this damage and kill all these innocent people. But how true is this statement of Cheney's?
Well, it's absolutely false, because if you remember, this is when Obama released what was supposed to be a smoking gun, which is really just a fizzling squirt gun, because there was no evidence in it. But if you remember, the three main intelligence services, the FBI, the CIA, and the NSA, it was the CIA and FBI that said they had a high degree of confidence. The NSA said they only had a moderate degree of confidence. And that's important because these will be based on NSA intercepts, most likely, unless there was human intelligence involved. But so the NSA intercepted the data proving it, and then they said, we're really not that sure about it. The FBI and the CIA went and started cheering it.
Now, you gave the number of the 81 countries that they're pretty sure that we've been involved in. Sometimes they brag about it. Oh, we did this and we did this. We came, we saw, he died, you know, and they thought that was a big deal. But I think what's going on here is that we are the empire, we are in charge, we are the wealthiest, in spite of our fragile underpinnings of our economy. We still have a lot of wealth and a lot of weapons, and a lot of people fear us, and a lot of people know we build weapons, and we have a lot of control of the financial system. But when it comes to interfering in elections, they will lie through their teeth about what's really going on. And I think the empire, especially the CIA, they're terrified of competition. Yes, it isn't the principle of interfering, but we are good people, and we will only put the right people in office. Look at the good things that we did in Iraq. We got rid of that monster. And in Libya, we got rid of their monster. And we tried to get rid of that Assad monster. That one isn't working out quite so well. And what do they get? They get nothing but chaos and more killing and a mess. And sometimes you wonder, could they be that stupid? Is it all unintended consequences, or could there be a purpose in their madness?
They want the chaos, maybe. But the issue of Russia hacking the elections is over and over again, and it's now just accepted without thought. Is it possible? It's certainly possible if the Russians wanted Trump to win. He was saying, I want to get along with Russia. Hillary was saying we need to be on war footing. So it's not rocket science that they probably preferred, at that point at least, Trump. But, Zero Hedge, which reported on the Cheney issue, made two very good points that has still not been answered, and they're very simple. What exactly was hacked? Nobody says. What did the Russians hack? And the second, how exactly did Russian interference impair the elections? What did they do? And nobody says it. They just want to kind of wink, wink and say, well, we know they did it.
Well, I think if there's a little bit of smoke and they want to look into it, I wouldn't say you never should look into it. If the Russians were involved, I want to know about it and what was going on. But the big thing is right now, I think a little bit more investigation, and I don't understand why the administration, since they have somebody in the administration that's pretty good at handling the media, why, if the Russians were involved, and they probably some way or another they were, I think they favored a certain candidate, But where's the evidence? It looks like they were much more favorable to Clinton, and what they're doing. And what about this Clinton's foundation? And what about the company that Clinton signed off on being that was sold to the Russians, where they actually have some control? It's implied that they maybe have some control over our uranium. And no, it is. I know we're up against a media that's not likely to report this, but I haven't heard a whole lot. The Republicans, if they didn't like this, they're supposed to be controlling the investigations, and checking into these things. But I don't hear a whole lot about that.
No, they seem to be cowed, and we're not allowed to talk about the uranium deal because it's a conspiracy theory. The fact that the State Department, of which Hillary was head at the time, signed off on the deal along with several other agencies doesn't mean that she had any control over it. So there's nothing there. Of course, there were large donations made, not directly by the Russians, but by a person who benefited from that deal to the Clinton Foundation. But we're not allowed to talk about that. It's just conspiracy stuff.
So how would you summarize these two issues that we talked about here today, about our buddy Dick Cheney, and also what's going on with that Montenegro coming into NATO? So we have a bigger job there.
Well, I would say three things. No new ideas in Washington now. It's simply about, did you work for Putin or did he work for Putin? Secondly, I think there's an implosion of the presidency. And as you pointed out very well early on, this absolute silence on Montenegro's accession to NATO is really a key indicator of that.
Yes. Well, anyway, I want to thank our viewers today for tuning in. I think these are very important issues. I think the sad part that I see here is that there's no worry about this. Let's put it aside, just what Rand had to go through. Nobody cared. All he was asking for was a vote, on whether or not they should add another country that we're obligated to protect. But there's not enough concern. But it does have to do with the canned media that we have, because, conservative Republicans didn't support this effort to return the responsibility of declaring war to the Congress. There's nobody interested. I was told one time in the 70s, Ron, forget it. Don't even talk about it. It's never going to happen. There will never be another time this country is going to declare war. They're just going to go to war. And just think of what's evolved since the 1970s. But it had already been going on. We had the Vietnam War and the Korean War, and it wasn't going to change, but it's worse than ever. But if the American people would wake up and say, enough is enough. We don't need any of these wars. You shouldn't go to war carelessly. But the Senate does these things, and that's a treaty, and the treaties make it law, and that sort of thing. But remember, if the Congress gets the message, it'll be defunding. That's how Vietnam War finally ended. They started defunding it, no more money for the wars. So the Congress, even when they allowed it to get out of control, the founders set this up, that the money was important. If they defund it and not pay the bills, you still have a bit of a problem, because we do know that the CIA raised the money in the drug industry when they wanted to run secret wars. But nevertheless, the American people have to wake up, and this nonsense would cease. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today to the Liberty Report. Please come back soon.